Forget the typical budget travel videos. This isn't about skipping meals or staying in hostels. This is what 2 weeks in Florence really costs when you slow travel, base yourself right in the historic center, eat out daily, and even host a friend from home. Florence is on almost everyone's Italy bucket list. The Duomo, Michelangelo's David, the Uffizi, it's like living in an open-air museum. In our 2 weeks here, we wandered through the Boboli Gardens, explored the Gucci Museum, admired the architecture, crossed the Ponte Vecchio more times than we can count. We took a day trip to Pisa to see the Leaning Tower and explore the town, and another to Lucca where we walked along the Renaissance walls, visited the Gunigi Tower, and discovered hidden piazzas. We even capped one night off with a Dave Matthews Band concert with Tim Reynolds at the Nelson Mandela Forum. But what does it really cost to do all that? While also indulging in pastries every morning, trattoria dinners every night, and picking up a few meaningful souvenirs like leather goods and jewelry. We tracked every euro, and in this video, we'll take you line by line through our entire Florence budget. Housing, transportation, food, groceries, entertainment, shopping, even sunscreen and sneakers. And at the end, we'll add it all up so you know what 2 weeks in Florence really costs. For anyone planning their own adventure, whether it's a short trip or full retirement travel, this is the real number behind the postcard. If you're new here, we're two traveling after one, a couple of empty nesters on a mission to explore the world and share all the tips we pick up along the way. Like and subscribe to our channel for everything slow and nomadic travel, practical tips, destination guides, and in-depth information to help you plan your next adventure. This stay in Florence was part of our 3-month trip across Italy, moving south to north. We started in Sicily, then we spent 3 weeks in Sorrento before heading here to Florence and wrapping up with 2 weeks in Venice before flying out to Montreal. Like many travelers, we're working within the 90-day Schengen visa limit. We planned 79 days total in the zone, leaving a little buffer for travel delays at the end. That meant every stop counted, and Florence was one we couldn't skip. We chose it not just for the art and the history, but also because it made such a great hub. Florence is a cultural capital, but it's also perfectly connected for day trips to places like Pisa and Lucca. We knew it would test our budget even in April. There's no real off-season here. The historic center is busy, the streets are filled with study abroad students, and the prices are higher than other Italian cities. And for us, this stay looked different. We had a friend visiting from the US, which meant more meals out, more shopping, and more experiences packed in. It was going to be one of our more expensive stops, and that's exactly what you'll see in this budget. First off, how do we pay for everything? Florence is extremely credit card friendly, so almost all of our expenses went on cards. For cash, we used our Charles Schwab debit card at ATMs, which reimburses international fees. That saved us money every time we needed a small withdrawal for markets or smaller cafes. Between the Schwab card for cash and cards for everything else, the money was simple here. It's the same setup we've used across Europe, and we'd recommend it to anyone slow traveling abroad. One of the biggest line items is always housing. For Florence, we wanted to be right in the middle of it all, and that meant planning ahead. To get 2 weeks in a central apartment, we booked about 8 months in advance. We stayed at Dante States, a 1-bedroom apartment we found on Booking.com, just around the corner from the Uffizi. When we checked in, they even gave us a map with all the major sites marked out, which turned out to be surprisingly useful. The apartment itself was historic but updated, quiet despite being in the heart of the city, and felt very secure. It had heat, a comfortable bed, and a small but well-equipped kitchen. The pull-out couch made it perfect for hosting our visiting friend. For 14 nights, the cost was $1,687.80, or $120.55 a night. Being this central meant we could walk everywhere, and it kept us right in the middle of the action for our entire stay. Our journey to Florence started with the local Circumsuviana train from Sorrento to Naples, the same no-frills commuter line we use for day trips to Pompeii and Naples. From there, we upgraded to the Frecciarossa high-speed train for the long stretch north to Florence. And this just wasn't any train ride. The Frecciarossa is Italy's premier service, and it felt like it. We had comfortable leather seats, power outlets to recharge our phones and laptops, Wi-Fi that actually worked, and even a small snack box with sanitizing wipes handed out by the staff. It made the trip feel like a comfortable adventure. Once we arrived in Florence, the transportation became almost effortless. Staying in the center meant we could walk everywhere. The Duomo, the Uffizi, the leather market, all within minutes of our apartment. We did take a couple of easy day trips by train. Pisa was about an hour away, where we spent the day exploring the monuments, around the Field of Miracles, and wandering the town. And in Lucca, we walked along the Renaissance walls, explored the piazzas, and admired the Guinigi Tower with its rooftop garden. Both towns were simple to reach from the Santa Maria Novella train station, and tickets were inexpensive, costing about $20 round trip for two people for each one of those trips. For 2 weeks in Florence, all of our transportation costs, the high-speed train from Naples, plus our day trips to Pisa and Lucca, came to $171.45. This was our splurge category, and we embraced it. With a friend visiting, we ate out every single day, and our food and drink total came to $1,665.44. Florence is packed with cafes, trattorias, bakeries, and wine bars, and for the 2 weeks, we made the most of it. Let's start with the star of the show, Trattoria ZaZa. We ate here twice because once just wasn't enough. Their Florentine steak was everything people say it is, massive, juicy, and perfectly cooked. We paired it with a house wine, truffle pasta, and desserts that capped off the night beautifully. ZaZa is popular, so expect to wait, but it's worth it for classic dishes done right in a lively setting. Another highlight was Trattoria Mama Gina, which gave us one of our favorite traditional Florentine meals. The service was warm, the atmosphere felt local rather than touristy, and every plate reminded us why Florence is known for its hearty rustic food. For something sweet, Vivoli Gelato was unforgettable. This is where we had an affogato, artisanal gelato drowned with a shot of espresso. We also love Cafe Gili, Florence's historic coffee house. We stood at the counter with hot chocolate and espresso, sampled pastries, and even bought chocolates to take with us. It's elegant but approachable, and it's been part of Florentine life for over 250 years. For breakfast, Melaleuca Bakery was always busy and always worth the wait. Their pastries and coffee quickly became a favorite. And at Lunetta Cafe, we started the day with shakshuka banana bread and matcha lattes before heading up to Piazza Michelangelo for that classic view of Florence. The cafe's stop made the uphill climb a little easier. We also love Ben Cafe, where pastries, coffee, and lattes gave us a change of pace from all the pasta and pizza. It became one of our unexpected favorites. At night, Veneria Sonora was the kind of place we'd happily return to again and again. Shelves of vinyl records, natural wines, and small plates in a laid-back atmosphere with great music. It was one of those evenings that remind us why slow travel means saying yes to experiences beyond the guidebook highlights. And for a fun curveball, there was Galoscious Burger, where the burgers are so massive they actually give you gloves to eat them. A break from the traditional Italian meals, but a memorable one. Those were the highlights, but they were just the beginning. We lined up for Al Antico Vineo for their famous focaccia sandwiches, sampled pork sandwiches from La Fatuta, and tried gelato from Amarino, La Gelateria, and Gelateria de Nero. From simple bakeries to elegant cafes, eating in Florence became its own kind of itinerary. And that's what pushed this category so high. For us, food wasn't just fuel. It was how we experienced the city, connected with friends, and indulged in a little bit of everyday Florentine life. Groceries were a much smaller part of our Florentine budget, just $159.38 over 2 weeks. And that's because we were eating out every single day. And even so, we made a few market stops that became part of our slow travel rhythm. The Mercato Central is a big bustling market in the center of Florence, filled with fresh pasta vendors, cheese counters, and traditional trattorias tucked inside. It's as much as an attraction as it is a grocery stop, and we loved walking through, sampling, and picking up a few things to take back to the apartment. We also wandered through the San Ambrogino Market, a local spot where Florentines actually shop. There you'll find produce stands, cured meats, and small vendors selling everything from jams to vintage finds. It had a totally different feel, less polished and more authentic, and reminded us why markets are often the best way to get to know a city. Most of what we bought was simple: bottled water, fruit, bread, and cured meats. Our favorite was putting together an afternoon spread of prosciutto and cheese in the apartment. It was the perfect break between sightseeing and dinner out, and gave us a chance to enjoy some of the flavors Florence is known for without sitting in a restaurant. So while the grocery budget looks small compared to what we spent eating out, it still mattered. Those quick market runs for bread, prosciutto, and cheese gave us a break from restaurants, and they reminded us of the everyday side of Florence that most visitors miss. Entertainment in Florence came to $178.61 for the two of us. That included a handful of entry fees plus one big splurge, seeing the Dave Matthews Band with Tim Reynolds at the Nelson Mandela Forum. The tickets were about $70 each, and for us it was worth every euro. Experiencing a favorite band in such an intimate setting overseas is the kind of travel memory that sticks with you forever. Beyond the concert, we visited a mix of paid attractions and free highlights. We spent time at the Gucci Museum, toured the Pitti Palace, and walked through the Boboli Gardens, each offering a different side of Florence's history and art. But honestly, some of our favorite entertainment didn't cost anything. Florence itself feels like a museum without walls. We crossed the Ponte Vecchio countless times, stood in the middle of Piazza dei Signori, surrounded by the Renaissance statues, and stopped to admire the Fountain of Neptune. We hiked up to San Miniato al Monte, where we caught an evening mass with monks chanting, and from the steps we had one of the best sunset views of the city, without the crowds of Piazza Michelangelo. We explored the stunning Pharmacy Santa Maria Novella, the world's oldest pharmacy, where centuries of history are preserved alongside with perfumes, creams, and remedies in one of the most beautiful interiors in Florence. We also spent an afternoon wandering the Boboli Gardens, the vast park between the Pitti Palace. With its sculptures, fountains, and sweeping views over the city, it was the perfect place to slow down and take in the quieter side of Florence. Markets also became a part of the rhythm of our days. We browsed the Mercato di Sant'Ambrogino, full of fresh produce and vintage finds, and wandered the Piazza Santo Spirito, where a Sunday market mixed crafts, antiques, and locally made goods. And our day trips added even more. In Pisa, we explored the Piazza dei Miracoli and the monuments surrounding the Leaning Tower. In Lucca, we walked the city walls, admired the Duomo and the Uffizi Tower, and took in the city sights. So while Florence is often thought of as expensive, it's also a place where some of the best experiences are free. Our entertainment budget might look small compared to the other categories, but the memories felt priceless. Our shopping budget in Florence came to $649.14, which is a lot higher than usual for us. But this wasn't just about souvenirs, it was about finding things that we actually needed, would use, and would cherish. The Florence Leather Market was one of our first stops, where rows of jackets, bags, and belts spilled out into the street under the watchful eye of the famous bronze pig statue, Il Porcellino. Legend has it if you rub its nose, you're destined for good luck. We made sure to keep that tradition alive. Dan picked up a pair of new Hoka sneakers, which he'd been needing for all the walking we were doing. I found a small leather purse with a woven strap, practical for daily use and still a beautiful reminder of Florence's craftsmanship. For my birthday, I treated myself to a silver ring made by a local artisan, set with the giglio, Florence's emblem. The giglio is a red stylized lily with stamens on the white background, a distinctive variation of the famous fleur-de-lis symbol. It felt like the perfect keepsake, something simple and beautiful and deeply tied to the identity of the city. We also explored shops beyond the markets, small vintage boutiques, curated designer spaces, and places like TP Vintage and the Florence Factory Craftsman shop, which showcased local artisans. Even window shopping along Via dei Tornabuoni, lined with high fashion houses, was an experience in itself. The Sunday market at Piazza Santo Spirito was another highlight. There we browsed handmade jewelry, thrifted clothes, and food products that felt much more personal than mass-produced souvenirs. This category was definitely higher than what we usually spend, but for us it was worth it. These weren't just impulse buys, they were pieces to connect us back to Florence in a meaningful way. Our health and wellness budget in Florence came to $96.59, and this time it wasn't for doctor visits or prescriptions like we had in some other cities. Instead, it was more about stocking up on a few everyday essentials. We bought Italian sunscreen, which we found to be high quality and less expensive than what we've seen back in the US. We also picked up some face cream, since we've learned that skincare products in Europe can be both affordable and excellent. These weren't big purchases, but the kind of thing that makes long-term travel a little smoother, and it's nice to have reliable products on hand when you're moving from one country to the next. Health and wellness might not be the most glamorous budget line, but for slow travelers, it's an important one. Taking care of the little things is what helps us keep going month after month. Staying connected in Florence was simple and affordable. We rely almost entirely on eSIMs, and for these 2 weeks, we each refilled our Airalo plans. Dan's refill cost $14.50, and mine was $8.13 because I had some credits in my account from past purchases. That gave us 30 days of coverage with 5 gigabytes of data each, which was more than enough for maps, messaging, and staying connected on the go. We use Wi-Fi in our apartments whenever possible, but data is essential for navigating new cities, booking trains, and finding restaurants in the moment. Altogether, the phone and Wi-Fi category came to $22.63. Not a big expense, but absolutely essential for our style of travel. Now let's add it all up. Our biggest expense, as always, was housing. For 2 weeks, in a central Florence apartment, we spent $1,687.80. Booking about 8 months in advance gave us a chance to secure the right place in the middle of it all, but the price reflects that location. Next was food and drink. Between trattorias, cafes, bakeries, and gelato shops, this category came to $1,655.44. It was by far our most indulgent line item, but with friends visiting and so many amazing places to eat, we wouldn't have done it differently. Shopping was unusually high for us, totaling $649.14. That covered Dan's new hokas, my leather purse, my new silver ring, along with a few small artisan finds. These weren't just souvenirs, they were practical purchases and keepsakes we'll carry forward. Groceries were a minimal $159.38, mostly snacks, fruit, and our prosciutto and cheese afternoons at the apartment. We ate out daily, so this number stayed low. For entertainment, we spent $178.61. That included the Gucci Museum, Boboli Gardens, and one big highlight, the Dave Matthews Band concert at the Nelson Mandela Forum. It was an incredible night and one of the most memorable parts of our stay. Travel came to $171.45, covering our train into Florence, plus day trips to Pisa and Lucca. Public transportation made exploring outside the city both easy and affordable. Health and wellness totaled $96.59, mainly sunscreen and skincare, small purchases but important for long-term travel. Phone and Wi-Fi cost just $22.63. Thanks to 2 Airlau eSIM refills, staying connected in Florence was reliable and inexpensive. That brings our grand total for 2 weeks in Florence to $4,631.04. Broken down, that's about $330.79 per day for 2 people, or $165.39 per person per day. For us, that's well above our usual slow travel budget of $5,000 per month. Florence was definitely a splurge. So what's the real cost of 2 weeks in Florence? Every apartment, every meal, day trip, and even the sunscreen and sneakers? For us, it was worth the splurge, but probably not a city that we'd return to for another long stay. There's no denying that Florence is incredible, but it's also busy, touristy, and hard to escape the crowds. If you found this breakdown helpful, give this video a like. It really helps more people to find our channel, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more honest budget breakdowns and slow travel guides from Italy and beyond. Thanks so much for watching, and happy travels!